Oh, my ancestors, so late for me to unwrap, layer by layer, this gift of your silence. But today I place my birth call over my eyes so I may see. And I weep for the bones I find here.
Esther Phillips, Barbados's poet laureate, grew up in the shadow of Drax Hall.
I was always conscious of Drax Hall because it surrounded us, actually. It was on the east, the west, and the south.
One of the oldest slave plantations in the Caribbean. Over the centuries, thousands toiled and died, producing the sugar that made its British owners fabulously rich. A place etched in Esther's memory from childhood.
Going as a small child to Drax Hall with a skillet to collect milk. My grandfather kept cows in Drax Hall yard. And there's a sense of shame, a sense of guilt in knowing that I could have grown up so many years and not know what this plantation house symbolized, what it meant. I had no idea that when we were running and playing on the lands there, that we were actually running and playing and walking over the bones of our ancestors.
The house and lands are now being passed on to the latest Drax in line, Richard Drax, the MP for South Dorset. An estate whose contents and history are closed to the people of Barbados.
We can't get any closer because it's private, and some people say that's a really big problem. They think it should be open to the public so people can see and hear and feel the history within these walls.
For Kevin Farmer, a historian at Barbados Museum, Drax Hall holds historic knowledge that's vital to understanding the nation's history.
For me, as a historian and other historians, beyond just the physical space, it would be interesting to take a look into the records to understand what's the history, what did our ancestors go through, what was the run of that plantation like, given that theoretically you should have records spanning at least 2 centuries or more.
What makes Drax Hall so unique is that unlike most plantations here in Barbados, which have changed hands since the slave trade was abolished, it's still owned and run by the same family.
How important is it to get access to Drax Hall to find out more about what happened there?
We don't know where the enslaved village is, we don't know where the enslaved burial ground is. We have no way of reconstructing the life ways of the enslaved using archaeology as a discipline because we don't have access to the site.
How many enslaved people could be buried there?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
This is an instruction manual of how to manage a plantation, and it's from 1786. And one of the authors in this is Richard Drax. And in here you see the attitude towards enslaved people. The blacks are commonly addicted to thieving. If it be for their belly, it's more excusable. But I hope none of mine will ever have occasion to be thieves for want. But if at any time they are taken stealing sugar, molasses or rum, they must be severely handled. Now Barbados is taking the final step in leaving behind its colonial past. They're getting ready to become a republic, removing the Queen as the head of the state. While celebrations are gearing up, this is also a moment of reflection for the country, with questions being asked about the impact slavery still has today. Sunbury House Plantation, like many on the island, is open to the public and stands as a monument to history.
It's just so odd looking up and seeing all of the people who would have been the Queen's representative from the 17th century, and they're all white, and they're all white men. And then it's only in 1966 when you have the first person of African descent.
While access to these plantation buildings is important for some, for others, displaying the past isn't enough. They believe some kind of compensation is needed, just like when the plantation owners were compensated for their loss after slavery was abolished.
There are a number of facets to reparations. One of them is that you need to invest in the various Caribbean countries. We came into independence, this country, and there's absolutely nothing that was given to support countries, our country, and countries that were suffering from centuries of neglect and suffering the legacy of enslavement. Nothing was given.
Richard Drax, he has said that it is regrettable, but that has given the sentiment that also this is in the past. He can express regret, but essentially this isn't on him.
You inherited it, and you could not be the owner of the plantation had it not been for the blood, the sweat, and tears of the people who work there. They're the ones who made you. And whether you accept it or not, you have a responsibility to repay some of that for them.
Richard Drax has told us he finds the role his relatives played in the slave trade to be deeply regrettable, but that no one today can be held responsible for what happened hundreds of years ago. For some here, though, it feels much more present, a history that's been hidden and not fully pieced together, so that healing can finally take place.